In the quiet stillness of the night, when the world breathes softly and the last lights fade behind distant horizons, there is a journey worth remembering, an ancient voyage that has survived more than 2,000 years, carried across time not by sails nor by storms, but by the fragile breath of poets, storytellers, and wandering scholars. Tonight, as you close your eyes and drift slowly towards sleep, allow your mind to travel back to a world shaped by gods and mortals, where the sea was both a mirror of destiny and a battlefield of divine forces. This is the journey of Odysseus, king of Ithaca, a story carved into the stone of human memory, whispered across centuries, and preserved in the epic known as the Odyssey, one of the greatest works of literature ever conceived. The Odyssey is not merely a tale of adventure, it is a meditation on longing, loyalty, destiny, and the endurance of the human spirit. It is the quiet ache of a hero who has seen the fires of war and longs only to return home. It is the tension between fate and free will, where each decision echoes through the tapestry of divine plans and mortal ambitions. It is the story of a man who faces monsters shaped not only by myth, but by the shadows of his own choices, an eternal journey that reflects the inner journey of every soul seeking a place of belonging. As dawn rose on the ashes of Troy, Odysseus' long voyage began. He did not know then that it would stretch across 10 long years, that the sea would test his courage more fiercely than any sword, and that the gods themselves would push him to the breaking point. The Odyssey becomes a mirror, showing how determination can survive storms, how the idea of home can carry a person across continents, and how a single promise can be strong enough to guide a man through darkness. This promise is what guides Odysseus, the memory of Ithaca, a rugged island surrounded by blue waters, the image of Penelope, his patient queen weaving and unweaving threads, the faint laughter of his son Telemachus, whom he last held as a baby, and the palace pillars he once walked between as king. In the Odyssey, time itself becomes mythical. Days stretch like years, years pass like waves. Heroes and monsters seem equally possible, dreams and reality weave into one fabric. Odysseus' journey feels like a dream carried in the mind of humanity, a vision so vivid that night after night, century after century, we continue to relive it, around fires, in classrooms, in books passed from generation to generation. Tonight, you too become part of this long tradition, letting your imagination drift across the Aegean Sea, watching the stars shimmer above ancient sailcloth, hearing the distant roar of waves against rocky shores. This documentary will guide you through the epic, not as a fast-paced tale of battle, but as a slow and immersive journey, like waves rising and falling beneath a moonlit sky. The Odyssey begins in the wreckage of war, and so do we. Its first notes echo with loss, the burnt towers of Troy crumbling, the despair of men far from home, and the decisions that shaped their destiny long before they realized it. Yet even in war's aftermath, Homer's voice calls us gently, inviting us to wander onward toward themes larger than conflict, questions about how we remember, what we value, and what we are willing to sacrifice for the life we desired. In this script, the story unfolds like a dream. You may fall asleep before Odysseus even reaches the shores of his first challenge, and that is all right. The Odyssey has always lived in the space between waking and sleep, in the moments where imagination takes control and reason becomes quiet. Like a poet-dreamer drifting on the sea, you may let the waves carry you wherever they choose. This introduction whispers of the journey ahead, and the journey behind. We look at Odysseus not only as a warrior king, but as a man shaped by grief, fatigue, longing, and hope. The Odyssey remains relevant not because of its mythical creatures or divine interventions, but because of its emotional truths that echo through time. The idea of trying to get home, whatever home means to each of us, is universal. It is as old as humanity, as timeless as the stars that guided ancient sailors. So let your mind wander. Let sleep carry you into this story. Let the dreamlike rhythm of the ocean wash away the noise of the present. Hear the creaking of ancient timbers beneath your feet. Imagine the warm glow of oil lamps flickering across the faces of men who stare into the dark horizon, wondering if they will ever see their families again. This is not just Odysseus' journey, it is ours. The Odyssey teaches that life is a voyage filled with storms, temptations, setbacks, and revelations. Yet no matter how far we drift, the idea of home remains a compass. When Homer first sang this epic, perhaps under starlight, perhaps to an audience gathered in silence, he created something that would endure beyond temples and empires. Civilizations rose and fell, but the story of Odysseus continued. Tonight, you join that audience. You are part of an ancient chain of listeners stretching back to the dawn of Western storytelling. The Odyssey is yours now, not just a text, but a lullaby, a reminder that even heroes must rest, and even the greatest journeys require quiet moments of reflection. As the music of the sea fades softly into the edge of your consciousness and the rhythm of your breathing becomes slow and steady, we prepare to follow Odysseus across the waves. From the ruins of Troy to the distant shores of unknown islands, from the halls of gods to the whispering caves of mythical beasts, his journey will unfold slowly, with the patience of time itself. And if you fall asleep along the way, you will dream within the dream of Homer, and awaken somewhere deeper within the story, as if the journey continued without effort. Close your eyes, if you wish. The voyage is about to begin. The sun had only just begun to sink behind the blackened ruins of Troy when Odysseus first turned his eyes toward the sea, toward the endless horizon that separated him from home. The war that had consumed 10 years of his life was finally over. The city that once stood like a proud flame on the coast now smoldered like dying embers, its once great walls broken, its towers reduced to jagged silhouettes against a fading sky. The cries of battle had quieted, replaced by the distant crackle of wood and the whisper of wind moving through collapsed stones. Soldiers moved slowly through the ruins, like ghosts returning from a dream they never meant to enter. Their armor was dented, their bodies tired, their hearts heavy with the memories of friends they would never see again. For Odysseus, victory held no triumph, only exhaustion. He had devised the strategy that ended the war, the wooden horse that opened Troy from within. History would remember this moment as brilliance, but in his mind, it carried the weight of countless lives. The cleverness that had brought Greek warriors inside Troy's walls also brought destruction, flames, and the sorrow of families broken forever. As he walked across the ashes of the fallen city, Odysseus felt the first stirrings of a truth that would follow him across the sea. Every victory has its cost, and every triumph casts a shadow. The beginning of the journey is more than the moment he steps aboard his ship. It is the moment he realizes that the world outside Troy is no longer the world he remembers. He has been changed by war. The men around him have been changed. Even the gods, once distant but predictable, seem to have woven themselves more tightly into mortal affairs, as if the 10 years of conflict have shaken Olympus itself. Odysseus knows that returning home will not be a simple voyage made by sails and oars. He senses already that the sea will test him, that the gods will watch closely, that fate has threads still left to weave around his name. As the Greek armies prepare to depart, the mood is strangely quiet. Some celebrate with hollow cheers, lifting wine cups to the sky. Others sit alone in silence, unable to imagine a life beyond the battlefield. The ships, curved like great birds with wings made of sailcloth, wait at the shoreline, bobbing gently in the tide. Men carry supplies aboard, jars of oil, salted meat, amphorae filled with water and wine. Eager hands tighten ropes, adjust rigging, and check the holes for cracks. It is the familiar rhythm of sailors preparing for long voyages, yet underneath the movement there is a tension that feels like a whisper running through every soldier. We survived one war, what awaits us now? Odysseus walks among them, not as a distant king, but as their equal, speaking to them, encouraging them, reassuring them that the sea, though unpredictable, is the only path to the lives they left behind. They trust him, not just because he is clever, but because he has suffered beside them. He has bled, fought, and lost friends just as they have. His knowledge of the sea, his calm leadership, his ability to think through chaos, these qualities make him the man they choose to follow. Yet even as he guides them, his mind drifts to Ithaca, the rocky shores, the olive trees twisting in the wind, the narrow paths that wind through hills, and the steady gaze of Penelope, who has waited without certainty for a decade. His ships push away from Troy as the sky turns purple. The sails catch the wind, billowing outward like wings ready to carry them home. The oars dip into the water with slow rhythm, and the sea swells beneath the hull. Odysseus stands at the prow, his cloak brushing against the wood, his eyes fixed on the stars beginning to appear overhead. The constellations are old friends, patterns he learned as a child, taught by sailors who believed that the heavens were maps gifted by the gods. The North Star glimmers like a polished stone, steady and bright. By its light, Ithaca lies west. But the sea has never been a straight path. It bends dreams into trials and tests the resolve of every heart that dares to cross it. The first night at sea is quiet. The men sleep in shifts, wrapped in cloaks, listening to the waves lap against the hull. Someone hums a song, one of the old ones, about homecoming and the promises made by sailors to the horizon. Others whisper about omens, about gods who might still feud among themselves after the war, about the anger of Poseidon, whose support had never been guaranteed. For though Odysseus is favored by Athena, goddess of wisdom and warcraft, Poseidon, the ruler of the sea, has long been unpredictable toward him. The balance of divine favor is delicate, and no mortal can truly know which direction the wind will blow. As dawn breaks over the water, streaks of gold spill across calm waves. The ships glide forward like shadows cast by the wind itself. Odysseus breathes in the salty air, and for a brief moment he imagines the journey will be gentle, that the gods will grant him an easy passage. But deep inside, he knows that nothing about his destiny has ever been simple. His name is woven into prophecy, into tales sung by poets yet unborn. His journey will not be remembered for straight sailing, it will be remembered for storms, for strange shores, for encounters with beings that lie between myth and reality. This knowledge sits heavily on his shoulders like a cloak made of fate. The fleet sails toward the first island, a place known for its gentle people, its calm bay, and its abundance of food. The men feel relief when the land rises in the distance, green and welcoming. They imagine a short rest, a chance to gather what they need, to sleep on solid ground. Yet this moment marks the true beginning of the Odyssey, for it is here that Odysseus learns how temptation disguises itself as comfort. The island seems peaceful, the people generous, offering food, wine, and hospitality. But beneath the kindness lies danger, not in violence, but in forgetfulness. The lotus eaters live here, sustained by a plant that draws the mind into dreams. Whoever eats its petals forgets home, forgets purpose, forgets the longing that drives them onward. When some of Odysseus' men taste the lotus, they fall into a trance of happiness, sitting on the shore with distant smiles. They no longer wish to sail home, they have become content in the present, lost in sweetness. It is not the kind of danger one can fight with swords or shields. It is the danger of surrendering one's purpose. Odysseus realizes that the greatest battles may not be against enemies, but against the softness of forgetting. With force and sorrow, he drags his men back to the ships, binds them to their benches, and orders the sails raised. The journey continues, carried by a wind that seems to whisper a warning. The path home is not just distance, it is discipline. This early encounter shows Odysseus the shape of his trials. The world beyond Troy is filled not only with monsters, but with illusions, comforts that erode destiny, distractions that dissolve resolve. He learns quickly that every step toward Ithaca will require not just strength, but clarity of purpose. His men must trust him when their own hearts falter, and he must trust in something deeper, his belief that home is worth fighting for, even when the journey feels endless. As Odysseus' ships cut through restless waters, the epic begins to reveal the deeper world of people and forces shaping his path. This is not merely a voyage of one man alone, it is a journey woven through the hearts of his crew, the loyalty of those who follow him, the patience of the family waiting across the sea, and the presence of gods whose unseen hands stir tides and tempests. In the Odyssey, every figure is a constellation in the vast sky of the story, some bright, some fading, each one guiding the hero forward or pulling him astray. Though the seas ahead threaten storms and hunger, the earliest struggles begin not with waves or monsters, but with the simple challenge of trust. Odysseus commands men who have endured 10 years of war. Each sailor carries his own scars, his own fears, his own memories of home like fragile lanterns in the darkness. They are loyal, but they are also tired. Their hearts are sore from loss. For many, the image of their homeland has become a distant dream blurred by battles, and the promise of Ithaca is a faint beacon drowned out by hunger, exhaustion, and temptation. It is here that Odysseus must show the kind of leadership that history will remember. His voice must carry strength when his men falter, his mind must remain sharp when others collapse into despair. Among these men are figures whom Homer never names in detail, yet their presence is profound. A captain of the oars, bent with age, who whispers to younger sailors about constellations. A warrior who still wakes at night imagining the siege of Troy. A boy barely grown into manhood, who has never known normal life without war. These shadowed figures stand beside Odysseus like echoes of countless people who follow a leader into the unknown, ordinary souls whose courage shapes the fate of legends. But the Odyssey is not the story of ship and crew alone. Far away, on the rocky shores of Ithaca, the other half of the hero's tale begins. In a palace filled with echoes, Penelope waits, steadfast, clever, devoted. While Odysseus battles monsters across the sea, she battles subtler forces, time, pressure, doubt, and the hunger of men who crowd her halls hoping to claim her hand. They do not simply threaten her, they threaten the very meaning of Odysseus' journey. If home is taken from him, if his throne is stolen and his wife forced into marriage, then his voyage becomes emptiness. Odysseus fights with oars and spear, Penelope fights with her mind. She weaves a burial shroud by day, undoing it by night, an act of resistance disguised as devotion. Each thread she unravels becomes a day gained, a prayer that Odysseus will return. She is the silent engine of the Odyssey. Without her, the story would unravel. She embodies patience, endurance, and faith. And beside her stands Telemachus, a young man who grew up without knowing his father, raised by stories and shadows. He has the name of a prince, but the world has never given him the respect of one. He watches the suitors feast at his tables, consume his inheritance, mock his quiet hope that Odysseus still lives. In his heart, there is a flicker of courage, and a longing to know the man whose blood runs in his veins. On Olympus, the gods watch all of this unfold. They are not distant idols, nor silent figures carved in stone. They are forces of personality, jealous, proud, wise, vengeful, protective. And none plays a greater role in Odysseus' fate than Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warcraft. She is the light hidden in the hero's thoughts, the whisper that guides strategy, the invisible hand that shields him when mortal strength is not enough. Athena sees greatness in Odysseus, not for his power, but for his cleverness, his endurance, his refusal to bow to despair. She becomes his divine ally, but she is also his challenge, for gods do not simply give victory, they shape destiny through trials. Balanced against her is Poseidon, lord of the sea, immense, unpredictable, and wounded by a slight that mortals might have forgotten but gods never do. Odysseus' encounter with the Cyclops, Poseidon's son, will mark the beginning of the god's fury, but the tension is ancient, older than this moment. Poseidon is the embodiment of the sea itself, generous one day, murderous the next, granting calm winds or calling storms to tear ships apart. His anger is the storm that follows Odysseus across every horizon, making each calm day feel like a temporary mercy. Where Athena seeks to sharpen the hero's mind, Poseidon seeks to test his soul. The gods show that power in the Odyssey is not simple. Mortals are not puppets, yet they are not free of divine influence. The epic unfolds in the space between human choice and godly design, the tension where destiny and desire collide. Odysseus must navigate this world with intelligence, understanding that courage alone cannot defeat storms sent by gods, and that wisdom is often sharper than any blade. The early struggles of the journey carry lessons that shape everything to come. The encounter with the Lotus Eaters reveals how forgetfulness can be more dangerous than fear. But soon after, Odysseus and his men face a challenge far more brutal, the Cyclops Polyphemus, a monster whose strength reflects the raw power of nature itself. Here, Odysseus' leadership is tested not only by danger, but by decisions that will echo across the entire voyage. They land on the Cyclops Island seeking supplies. At first, it seems empty, a place of quiet hills and deep caves. But within one of these caves lives Polyphemus, a giant whose single eye mirrors the vast cruelty of the untamed world. When he discovers the intruders, he does not follow the sacred law of hospitality known throughout Greece. He does not offer food or shelter. Instead, he devours Odysseus' men, without hesitation, without reason. His violence is a reminder that the world beyond cities is shaped by savage forces older than civilization. Odysseus must think quickly. He cannot fight brute strength with swords. It would be like striking a mountain with a spear. Instead, he uses intelligence. He offers wine to the Cyclops, a gift that dulls the monster's senses. He gives a false name, Nobody, and when the giant sleeps, Odysseus drives a sharpened stake into the Cyclops' eye, stealing his sight and sealing the fate of his own voyage. For as Polyphemus roars in agony, calling for help, he cries, "Nobody has hurt me." And the other Cyclopes, hearing his words, turn away, leaving him alone. This escape is brilliant, but it is also costly. As Odysseus sails away, pride rises in him like fire. Instead of staying silent, he shouts his true name across the waves. It was not Nobody, it was Odysseus. In this moment of triumph, Poseidon hears. The sea god now knows the name of the man who blinded his son. The cost of survival becomes the burden of divine anger. Odysseus has defeated a monster, but he has awakened a greater enemy. This moment reveals the complexity of the hero. Odysseus is wise, but he is also human. Victory tempts pride, and pride invites consequences. The early struggles show us a man learning the delicate balance between cunning and humility, between survival and reputation. His name weighs heavily on him. It is the legacy he carries, but also the beacon that draws storms. Meanwhile, on Ithaca, Telemachus begins his own quiet revolution. Guided by Athena disguised as mentor and traveler, he steps out from the shadow of doubt and begins to seek news of his father. His journey is not across dangerous seas, but through the political world of kings and alliances. He travels to old warriors who fought with Odysseus, Nestor at Pylos, Menelaus in Sparta, learning history, gathering courage, shaping himself into the kind of man who could one day stand beside his father. His quest mirrors Odysseus' own, revealing that journeys are not always made by ships, they can be made by questions, by growing into oneself. Together, these early struggles form the opening weave of the Odyssey's tapestry. We see Odysseus tested by temptation, by violence, by pride. We see his family tested by time, by pressure, by uncertainty. And above it all, the gods watch, shaping destiny with invisible hands. The Odyssey is not simply a voyage, it is the journey of a soul through every edge of human experience: loyalty, fear, intelligence, faith, love, and the longing for home. The early chapters of the epic end with Odysseus pressed onward by forces he cannot control. The sea stretches before him, dark and full of whispers. His men row onward, unaware of how deeply fate has taken hold of their journey. And somewhere across the changing winds, Ithaca waits, like a dream always slipping just beyond reach. The early struggles reveal a truth that will guide the rest of the epic: the path home is not only a physical journey, it is a moral one. Odysseus must learn not only to survive, but to grow. He must understand himself, his limits, his weaknesses, and his strengths. Only then can the hero truly become worthy of the home he seeks. The Odyssey moves forward, towards storms, magic, temptation, and revelation. The turning point draws near. From the moment Odysseus shouted his name across the waves, the sea itself seemed to change. No longer a vast field of blue carrying his ships toward home, it became a shifting realm of temperamental winds and sudden storms, as if Poseidon's breath stirred the surface and his anger churned the depths. Each sunrise carried uncertainty, each wave whispered of trials yet unseen. This is the turning point of the Odyssey, not a single event, but a realization that destiny has taken hold, that the journey is now more than a voyage. It is a confrontation with forces beyond mortal understanding. After escaping the land of the Cyclopes, Odysseus and his men approached the floating island of Aeolia, home to Aeolus, keeper of the winds. It is a place untouched by war, where the sun glimmers against polished stone and laughter echoes through bright halls. Unlike the savage wildness of the Cyclops cave, Aeolia shines with civilization, culture, and the delicate order of hospitality. Here, Odysseus is greeted not as a desperate wanderer, but as a guest honored for his cleverness. Aeolus listens to his tale, marveling at the cunning that ended the war, and for a time, fate seems gentle again. Aeolus gives Odysseus a precious gift, a leather bag filled with the winds of the world, tied with silver string. Only the west wind is allowed to guide the ships home. It is a gift of immeasurable power, control over the unpredictable, mastery of the sea's breath. As Odysseus stands upon the deck, watching the horizon draw closer to Ithaca each hour, he feels a fragile hope return. The island grows distant behind them, and home emerges across the waves like a promise made visible. For 9 days, the ships sail without interruption. The men row with renewed strength, their eyes bright with the knowledge that their journey may soon end. But destiny weaves alongside human desire, and the turning point arrives not through storms or monsters, but through whispers of doubt. As Ithaca's shoreline nears, so close Odysseus sees fires flickering on its beaches. His exhausted body succumbs to sleep. He trusts his men to carry them forward, to hold hope steady until dawn, yet his men, worn by hardship and clouded by suspicion, stare at the leather bag. They imagine it filled not with winds, but with gold and treasure Odysseus keeps from them. Their thoughts twist with envy. After all the suffering, after all the battles, is their king hoarding wealth while they face starvation? As night deepens, they untie the bag, the winds explode into the air like released spirits, screaming through the sails, tearing ropes, dragging the ship backward with violent force. Dawn breaks not over Ithaca, but over the empty horizon of the sea they thought they had conquered. The men collapse in despair. Odysseus awakens to the sound of his crew weeping, not from pain, but from the knowledge that their own hands shattered their deliverance. This moment is the heart of the turning point, a reminder that the greatest threats to destiny are often born within one's own circle. trust and loyalty are fragile, easily broken by fear. Odysseus returns to Aeolia, but the king who once welcomed him now turns away. "The gods must be against you," Aeolus says, refusing aid. And so the ships sail onward, not by choice, but by necessity. What follows is a descent into darker trials. The fleet reaches the island of the Laestrygonians, giants whose cruelty dwarfs even the Cyclopes. They destroy ships with boulders, crush men like insects, and leave Odysseus with only a single vessel. The sea that once carried 12 proud ships now carries one, laden with grief, with silence, with the weight of countless faces lost to waters stained by violence. It is here that Odysseus learns another truth: leadership means bearing the sorrow of those who follow, even when fate is unkind. His journey transforms from a march of armies to a fragile thread of survival, woven by the hands of a few weary men. The turning point is not a heroic charge into danger, it is the slow realization that heroism sometimes means enduring when everything crumbles. From the ruins of defeat, Odysseus sails to an island wrapped in mystery and sweetness, Aeaea, home of Circe, the enchantress. Her halls are filled with warm light and fragrant air. Her voice is soft, and her hospitality seems endless. Yet behind her beauty lies power that can reshape destiny. When Odysseus' men enter her home, she transforms them, not into corpses, but into animals, creatures reflecting their fatigue and their hunger. It is a different kind of danger, one that bends the mind rather than breaks the body. Odysseus resists her magic through guidance from Hermes, the messenger god. He becomes not just a survivor, but a negotiator. He confronts Circe not with violence, but with courage and intelligence. And she, who has transformed countless men, sees something in him, strength wrapped in humility, cleverness guided by purpose. She restores his crew and becomes a rare ally, offering not deception, but healing. Odysseus remains on her island for a year, allowing his men to regain strength, tasting peace that feels almost like home, but rest has a cost. The longer they remain, the more the memory of Ithaca fades beneath comfort. The turning point continues unfolding. Odysseus learns that even kindness can become a trap, that comfort can turn into chains. When he finally chooses to leave, Circe does not curse him, she warns him. His path now leads into the underworld, to the realm of shadows, where he must speak with the dead to understand his fate. This descent marks a profound transformation. Heroes do not typically enter the homes of the dead while still breathing. But Odysseus must. He sails to the edge of the world, where night wraps the ocean like a shroud. There, he spills sacrificial blood, and the dead gather. Among them is Tiresias, the blind prophet, who tells him the shape of destiny. His journey will be long, his trials many, his return uncertain, but possible. Tiresias speaks of Poseidon's wrath, of temptations that lie ahead, and of choices that will determine not only his fate, but the fate of his kingdom. In the underworld, Odysseus sees the ghosts of heroes, Achilles, who admits that glory is hollow in death. He sees Agamemnon, whose tragic tale shows the danger awaiting a king who returns home unprepared. He sees his own mother, learning that grief claimed her before she ever saw him again. These encounters pierce him deeper than arrows. The turning point is no longer just about storms or enchantresses. It is about the weight of mortality, the fragility of memory, and the realization that every step toward home is a step toward loss. When Odysseus returns from the land of the dead, his eyes carry a different light. He is no longer just a warrior seeking a throne, he is a man who has seen the truth of life and death, who understands that destiny is not a straight path. From this moment on, his choices carry a new gravity. His mind sharpens, his heart deepens. He knows that every decision could be the one that saves or destroys his future. This is the turning point of the Odyssey, when a hero transforms from a commander of men into a traveler of the human spirit. The sea still stretches endlessly before him, filled with storms and islands and gods waiting to challenge his resolve. But now, the journey is inward as much as outward. Odysseus must face not only monsters, but himself, his pride, his longing, his memory, his fear. The horizon is no longer just a distance, it is a mirror, and far beyond it, Ithaca waits, and far beyond it, Ithaca waits. The Odyssey reaches its highest crest not in a single battle, but in the long sequence of trials that press Odysseus to the very edge of human endurance. From the moment he rises from the underworld with prophecy burning like an ember inside his mind, the sea seems to sharpen its gaze upon him. The journey becomes more perilous, as if fate itself is measuring the last threads of his determination. The waves no longer carry him as a wandering hero, but as a man who has seen death and returned, tasked with the knowledge that some challenges must be faced not for glory, but for the fragile promise of life waiting across the water. Guided by Circe's warning, Odysseus sets sail toward dangers no mortal ship should cross, dangers spoken in whispers, warnings carried by sailors like dark legends. The first among them is the sirens, whose voices are said to weave desire into sound, to wrap longing into songs so intoxicating that men forget the existence of land, of love, of home. Their music calls to the most private yearning in every heart, revealing a truth that even heroes struggle to resist, the temptation to surrender to beauty without consequence. Preparing for this challenge, Odysseus does not rely on strength, but on knowledge, on the counsel given by Circe. He orders his men to fill their ears with wax to block out the hypnotic sound. They do so with trembling hands, afraid of a melody they have never heard but already fear, like the echo of a dream they cannot remember. Yet Odysseus chooses differently. He wishes to hear the song, not to succumb, but to know the danger fully, to face it not by hiding, but by witnessing it. His men bind him tightly to the mast with ropes crossing his body like the lines of destiny holding him in place. He commands them, no matter how he begs, no matter what he cries, they must not release him. As the ship glides into the siren's unseen reach, the wind falls silent. The sea becomes impossibly calm, as though listening. Then the song begins, not loud, not aggressive, but gentle, rising like mist from the water. It is a voice that speaks directly to Odysseus' heart. It calls to his longing with promises of knowledge beyond mortal minds, of secrets from wars and destinies sung by the gods themselves. The sirens tell him he is beloved by history, destined for story, worthy of a place beyond mere mortality. They offer him immortality through song, a life lived within eternal legends instead of fleeting days. Odysseus pulls against the ropes. His voice becomes wild. He begs to be untied, to steer the ship toward them. He cries out promises, threats, bargains, yet his men, deaf to the song, row forward with steady rhythm. They watch their leader transform beneath the spell, his face twisted with desperation. And then, as suddenly as it began, the song fades. The sea lifts its voice again, roaring against the hull. Odysseus collapses against the mast, exhausted. He has heard temptation and survived not through strength, but through the strength of others, the loyalty of men who refuse to obey his madness. This moment reveals the deeper truth of the Odyssey's challenges. No hero succeeds alone. Even the greatest mind requires hands that hold the rope steady. The peak of Odysseus' journey is not a single victory, it is the recognition of what destiny demands, humility. But the challenges continue. Ahead lie Scylla and Charybdis, two horrors placed by nature or by gods to test the courage of any who dare pass. On one side, Scylla waits, a creature of 6 heads, each one hungering for flesh, each able to snatch a man from a deck faster than words can form. On the other side, Charybdis churns the sea into a monstrous whirlpool, swallowing entire ships into the abyss. There is no path that avoids danger. There is only the choice of which sacrifice must be made. Odysseus knows this, Tiresias told him. Circe reinforced it. There is no cleverness that can cheat this fate. He must sail close to Scylla, losing men but saving the ship. He does not tell his crew the full truth. They prepare for battle, unaware that the swords they carry will do nothing against a monster hidden in the cliffs. As the ship passes, Scylla descends, seizing 6 men in her jaws. Their screams echo against stone, swallowed by the roar of the sea. The rest of the crew watches in horror, powerless. This is the peak of the Odyssey's cruelty, the realization that leadership sometimes requires unbearable choices. Odysseus carries this guilt forward like a wound deeper than any spear. The ocean has not defeated him with brute force, but with sorrow. And yet, he endures, because turning back is impossible, and surrender would erase everything his journey seeks to protect. Exhausted, shaken by loss, the survivors reach Thrinacia, the sacred island of Helios, the sun god. Tiresias warned them, do not touch the cattle of the sun. They belong not to mortals, but to the divine. Odysseus commands his men to swear an oath. They agree. They promise. They sleep hungry, but hunger is louder than promises. While Odysseus prays alone, seeking guidance from the gods, his men slaughter the sacred cattle, believing that a small transgression will be forgiven in the face of starvation. When Odysseus returns, he sees the fires, smells the roasting flesh, and realizes that fate has turned again. The violation is deep. The sun god demands vengeance, the punishment is swift. When the ship returns to the sea, Zeus strikes it with storm and lightning so fierce it tears wood to splinters. One by one, the men are swallowed by waves until only Odysseus remains. Clinging to wreckage, carried by currents he cannot control, he drifts through the ocean like a leaf caught in a storm. The trials rise and fall like mountains in a dream, and then, silence, when he awakens, he is on the shore of Ogygia, the island of Calypso. The sea has taken everything from him, crew, ships, strength. Calypso finds him broken, near death, and she breathes life into his lungs. She cares for him, comforts him, and offers him immortality. She offers to end the journey, to erase the storms and the sorrow. She offers love without condition, a beautiful prison shaped like paradise. Years pass, 7 of them, while Odysseus lives in comfort. But every night, he stares at the horizon. On the beach where waves wash over white sand, he sits alone, longing for Ithaca. Immortality is a gift without meaning if it cuts him away from his wife, his son, his kingdom, his story. He knows that the greatest triumph of a life is not in escaping death, but in returning to the place where love has roots, where memory lives. The peak of the Odyssey is the moment Odysseus refuses eternity for the sake of a mortal homecoming. It is the choice that defines him, not the fall of Troy, not the defeat of monsters, not the clever tricks of war, but the simple truth that a finite life filled with love outweighs an endless existence without it. The height of challenge, the gods intervene. Athena speaks in the halls of Olympus, reminding Zeus that Odysseus' journey is worthy of completion. Hermes carries the message to Calypso, and she releases the hero, reluctantly, sorrowfully, but with understanding. Odysseus builds a raft and returns once more to the sea, this time not with a crew or a fleet, but alone. He sails with nothing but his will and the memories that guide his heart. At the peak of the Odyssey, the hero stands stripped of everything except his identity. No army, no allies, no wealth. Only a name carved into fate, Odysseus, the man who chooses home over immortality, and the journey continues, toward the final reckoning that awaits him on the shores of Ithaca. When at last the shores of Ithaca rise like a memory made real, the sea is quiet. The waves that once roared with the voice of Poseidon now whisper against the sand, as if the ocean itself has grown tired of its long conflict with one mortal man. The journey that began with the ashes of Troy is twisted across years of loss, temptation, and revelation. Odysseus stands not as the king who left home, but as someone transformed, shaped by storms and sharpened by sorrow. His eyes, once bright with the certainty of youth, now carry the weight of all he has seen, the faces of his fallen men, the truths revealed by the dead, the songs that nearly stole his will. And yet, despite everything, Ithaca lies before him, rocky, humble, unchanged, as if waiting patiently for its wandering king to return. But the Odyssey's story does not end with a peaceful arrival. Homecoming is not simply a moment, it is a final test, a reckoning with the time past, and a confrontation with what has changed. Ithaca has endured without its king. And the kingdom Odysseus remembers is not the one he finds. In his absence, the palace has been consumed by arrogance. Dozens of suitors feast in the halls he once walked, drinking his wine, slaughtering his livestock, laughing at the idea that the king might still be alive. They speak boldly to Penelope, demanding her hand, ignoring the traditions that once held the world together. They have turned hospitality, sacred in Greek culture, into mockery. Odysseus cannot reveal himself, at least not yet. Athena, his divine ally, cloaks him in disguise, transforming his appearance into that of an aged beggar. His hair becomes thin, his clothes torn, his skin marked by time. This disguise is more than a strategy, it is a meditation on identity. A king now walks among his people unseen, judged not by his crown but by the kindness or cruelty in their hearts. His journey home becomes an exploration of character. Who among his people has remained loyal? Who remembers their king with respect? Who has been corrupted by power's absence? The first person to show true kindness is Eumaeus, the swineherd, a humble man who tends the pigs of the palace with quiet devotion. He welcomes the stranger into his home, offering food, shelter, and conversation, not knowing that the beggar before him is the ruler he once served. In this small, human moment lies one of the epic's greatest truths: loyalty is not only found in warriors and leaders, it lives in ordinary people who hold to their principles even when the world forgets them. Eumaeus represents the soul of Ithaca, the foundation upon which the kingdom stands. Through him, Odysseus sees that the roots of his home remain strong. Meanwhile, Telemachus, now a young man shaped by his own journey, returns to Ithaca guided by hope and the quiet influence of Athena. Father and son meet not in the glow of celebration, but in the humble shelter of Eumaeus' hut. The recognition between them unfolds with tears and disbelief. Telemachus has lived his entire life longing for a father spoken of in stories, a man he hoped was more than myth. And Odysseus, hardened by trial, finds in his son a reflection of everything he fought for, proof that his journey was not in vain. Their embrace is the heart of the Odyssey's aftermath, a meeting of past and future, of the man who left and the man who waited. Together, they plan the final reckoning, not through armies, but through patience, intelligence, and justice. The return of Odysseus will not be marked by trumpets or parades, it will be marked by strategy and truth. Disguised, Odysseus enters his own palace. The suitors mock him, throwing scraps at his feet. They insult the stranger, unaware that their words fall upon the ears of their king. Only a few show mercy. One suitor, Amphinomus, urges his companions to respect the beggar. Another, the servant girl, offers water without hesitation. These small sparks of humanity become part of Odysseus' judgment, reminders that even in corrupted spaces, some hearts remain pure. In the great hall of the palace, Penelope announces a challenge. She will marry the man who can string Odysseus' bow, a weapon only her husband could draw, and shoot an arrow cleanly through 12 axes lined in a row. It is a test of strength, but also a test of identity. One by one, the suitors attempt to string the bow. Their hands shake, their muscles strain. They fail. The bow remains stubborn, like fate itself refusing to bend to their arrogance. Then, the beggar steps forward. The room falls silent. With steady hands, Odysseus lifts the bow. His fingers know its weight like they know the shape of memory. Without effort, he strings it. The arrow flies, straight through the axes, like a line drawn across destiny. In this moment, he sheds his disguise. His body straightens, his face returns to its true form, and the king of Ithaca stands revealed. The suitors freeze in terror, not at the sight of a warrior, but at the sudden presence of justice. What follows is swift and necessary. With Telemachus beside him, Odysseus claims his home not through cruelty, but through the rightful restoration of order. The suitors who corrupted the palace fall by arrow and blade, their arrogance silenced. Those who showed kindness are spared. The hierarchy of values, loyalty, respect, justice, is restored. At last, Odysseus stands before Penelope. Their reunion is not simple. Years have passed. They have both changed. Penelope tests him, to protect herself from fraud, from hope that could break her heart. Only when he describes their bed, carved into the roots of a living olive tree, something no stranger could know, does she accept that her husband has truly returned. Their embrace is filled with the weight of 2 decades, 10 years of war, 10 years of wandering. It is not a passionate reunion for an audience, it is a deeply human moment, quiet and sacred. The Odyssey's aftermath stretches beyond this reunion. The epic reflects on the cost of the journey, not just for Odysseus, but for everyone his story touched. Telemachus has become a man shaped by absence and ambition. Penelope's strength has become legendary. Eumaeus and others receive honor for their loyalty. Even the suitors' families must face the justice that follows arrogance. The kingdom must heal the scars left by vacancy. In a final gesture of closure and peace, Athena intervenes to prevent further bloodshed. She calms the anger of those who lost sons, guides Ithaca toward reconciliation, and ensures that Odysseus' homecoming does not spark a new cycle of violence. Her presence reminds us that myth and morality intertwine. Justice is necessary, but so is mercy. As dawn breaks over Ithaca, Odysseus walks the land he once left as a young king, now older, wiser, shaped by every wave that carried him. The future will not be simple, but it will be honest. The Odyssey ends not with the conquering of a city, but with the restoration of a home. The impact of this epic travels far beyond ancient Greece.